Hosni the Dreamer. An Arabian Tale. Hosni was a shepherd who worked for a sheik. He was alone during the day, and since he had no one to talk to, he would sometimes talk to his sheep. After work, the shepherds liked to spend their evenings joking with one another or discussing what they would buy if they had money. All but Hosni. He preferred to spend his evenings listening to the tribal elders' tales of travel and adventure in faraway cities. Wow, think of that. Travel and adventures in faraway cities. One day. Hosni had always lived in the desert, and their stories filled him with dreams. One night, Hosni dreamed that he was in a city. The dream seemed so real to him that he felt he had actually been there. He wanted to tell the other shepherds about it, but he was afraid they would laugh at him. Instead, he only told his dreams to his sheep. One of the shepherds overheard him and said to the others, "Hosni talks nonsense to his sheep." "How strange," said one. "How stupid," said another. Soon, all the shepherds were making fun of him. One day, the sheik wanted to sell some of his camels in the city. He decided to take several of his shepherds on the journey, but Hosni wasn't one of them. When Hosni begged the sheik to let him go, the sheik said, "Sorry, Hosni, maybe next time." Then, just when they were ready to leave, one of the shepherds fell ill. The sheik decided to let Hosni take the sick man's place. They traveled for days, going through canyons, passing over mountains. Hosni felt so lucky to be going to the city that he didn't even notice how hot and dry it was. After crossing a large wadi, a riverbed that was dry, they finally reached the city. The sheik sold his camels. He paid each shepherd a gold denarii to give them the rest of the day off and to enjoy the wonders of the city. The shepherds hurried off together, leaving Hosni on his own. Hosni wandered through the city streets amid the noisy crowd. The more he walked, the more the city felt like his dream, and like the tribal elders' tales. Only now it was real and even more exciting than he had imagined. He went to the city's market, passing by the shops and stands with their colorful cloth, embroidered robes, carpets, shiny pots, and plates. The scent of pilaf, kebab, falafel, couscous, and sweet halva filled the air, but Hosni didn't buy anything. Then he noticed a sign on a small shop, 1 verse for 1 golden denarii. Hosni felt he must go in. When he entered, he found himself in a different world, where he could no longer hear the noise and commotion of the market. An old man was sitting alone. Hosni gave the man his gold denarii. The man looked at the coin, studied Hosni carefully, then slowly pronounced, "Don't cross the water until you know its depth." Hosni waited. Finally he asked, "Is that all, sir?" The old man said no more. The next morning, Hosni, the sheik, the shepherds left the city and rode into the desert. On the way, the shepherds talked about all they had eaten and all they had bought in the city. They asked Hosni what he bought. Hosni didn't respond. They began teasing him for not purchasing anything and for wasting his trip to the city. Finally, Hosni blurted out, "I did buy something, a verse." A verse? They could hardly believe their ears. He told them the verse, and they burst out laughing. "He spends all his money on worthless nonsense," said one. "What a foolish fool," said yet another, laughing. And the sheik laughed too. The shepherds were still laughing when they noticed dark rain clouds in the distance. They knew from the lightning and thunder that there must be a violent downpour in the mountains above them, but the rain was far away and not a single drop fell on them. They soon came to the wadi that had been dry on their way to the city, and now rainwater from the mountains was flowing into it. The sheik and the shepherds didn't hesitate. They entered the water with their loaded down camels and began crossing. Hosni thought about the verse he had bought and stopped. "Don't cross the water until you know its depth," he repeated to himself. Hosni called to the sheik and shepherds to come back, but the sheik replied impatiently, "Hurry up, Hosni." Now, a richly dressed man was also standing by the wadi. He was leading a camel by a long rope. On top of the camel was a luxurious canopy. When the man saw the sheik and the shepherds began to cross the wadi, he too entered the water. Hosni tried to warn him, but the man just shrugged his shoulders and kept going. Though Hosni did not want to be left behind, he kept thinking about the verse and couldn't bring himself to cross. The others hadn't gone far when suddenly a swift and powerful undercurrent swept them away, and the rushing waters swallowed them up. Hosni was horrified by what had happened. Then he heard a voice from inside the canopy on the camel's back. "My poor, poor servant! Oh, how awful!" Hosni approached the canopy and discovered a young maiden in it. "Gracious sir," she said, "I'm Zobidi. Now that my servant has perished, I'm lost. Please help me." "Don't worry," Hosni said gently. "I can take you back to the city." "Oh no, not there," she said. "I don't want to return to the emir. Against my wishes, he has sent me as a present to a prince I don't know. Where are you heading?" "I have no family," said Hosni. "Now that the sheik is dead, I have no work either. Besides, I'd rather go to an entirely new place than return to one where I was unhappy." "Please let me travel with you," said Zobidi. Hosni tied the rope to Zobidi's tied the rope of words. Try it. Hosni tied the rope of Zobidi's camel to his. He didn't attempt to cross the rushing waters. Instead, he went around the entire length of the wadi. They traveled for a long time. The days were very hot and the nights were cold. Hosni told Zobidi what he had learned from the tribal elders, of his dream about a city he had never seen before, and how the old man sold him a verse that saved him from the terrible tragedy they had witnessed. Zobidi told Hosni, "My father had worked for the emir. After I became an orphan, I was raised in the emir's palace. Life there wasn't happy as you would think. Although I'm most disturbed by what happened at the wadi, I believe it was a sign that I wasn't meant to live in another place with an unknown prince." Finally, they came to another city. Hosni and Zobidi grew to love each other. Soon they were married. With the silver and gold that Zobidi's camel carried, they bought a large house and fields. In time, they raised a family and lived happily for many years. Hosni never forgot the old man and his verse.